Tere. Hey everybody. Nice to see you again. So I've complete honor to carry on speaking about sales. As I understood, your previous session was about sales as well. The only thing I was able to hear was Kalev's echo, so I have no idea what you guys were speaking about. But today I will go more into like practical aspects and then speak about basic things. So I won't share some ninja tricks with you, just letting you know. Those who don't know me, I'm pretty, how to start with it? I'm pretty hard person to describe. I'm a trained lawyer who holds an MA degree in law. I went to sell books door to door when I was in college. So I sold books 5 years, knocked on like $35,000 doors. So I've done a lot of like customer sales in this sense. And when I came back, then I started my sales career in B2B sales. So past 13 years or so, I've been in B2B sales. Today, I'm running a company with another girl, Katrin, who just became a mom. So she's not here today. Congrats to her. But we're running a consulting business and mainly working with startups and helping to build sales structures and increase the sales efficiency. I also have a really cool side project. We're building a science studios or science centers in Tallinn. So I'm doing also quite a lot of fundraising currently. So I know what sales means in this sense. I worked with a lot of companies you might know, like Bolt, their B2B section. Currently, I'm working with parking. We are about to finish the project. Super Angel. We worked with Meet Frank, AdCash, which is one of the, I think, bigger company, not a startup anymore, and so on. So quite a bit of startups. That's the field I like. Why? I believe into processes, and I think startups are those who are on the verge of like starting to kind of get into things. So I like the fact that I can be there and I can support and help. Okay, but like I promised we're going to speak about sales today. And
just one thing before we start. Anytime you have questions, then use the Q&A option here in the Zoom, and I will be tracking it. And whenever you have a question, I will fast forward it to Kristi to answer. And at some point, we actually need your insights. So it would be awesome if you would use that opportunity and give your opinions in the Q&A section.
Thank you, Kalev. Yes, I will really appreciate the questions. But I will go on and last session, like some of the things I heard when I was sitting aside was that you guys were speaking about what is sales. So I would kind of like ask the same question, what is sales? Because sometimes we really think that sales is something that's just gonna magically happen once you have gotten ready your kick-ass product and it will start selling itself. And how this thing happens, nobody knows.
Well, it happens easily. I hire a good sales guy. This is a way how you do sales in startup. You should hire a sales guy. And if you are a bit richer startup, you might hire even a sales manager.
Yeah, that can be one option. I also have seen quite a bit of companies who are posting some things online. So they're doing marketing and then they think that they're selling their products. I've seen every kind of different things, but this is not something I'm going to speak about. I will speak about the complete sales process as that, because for me, it is a system. It's a process. I'm pretty organized on it. And I believe this is something that each one of you also need to consider, because I tend to always say that sales needs to be one step ahead of development always. So I do have some rules. As I'm a mom for 4 kids, then I always have rules in place. One of the rules will be that I am sharing my ideas and my experiences. This is what I will do. You may agree with a lot of things, you may disagree with quite a bit of things. It's completely fine. And I do encourage you to jump up and send the questions. Send the arguments in, completely okay. Like I told, I've been in sales for a long, long time, done the B2C, B2B sales. So I know quite a bit, but I don't know everything. Then why are the slides jumping? Another rule is that please have an open mind. It's okay to do things differently, and you can do things differently. You should do things differently. And last part was that Kalev mentioned that please ask questions. I will also have the parts where I will kind of encourage you to send some insights. Then we will have more workshop-like, because I'm really used to have people in the room. So it's challenging for me to sit here as well and look into the camera. Okay, but let's move on. Rules will be left here. And let's go to the sales and sales structures. So I did say, what is a sales? For me, it's a process, and I have divided it into 3 parts. The sales for me is divided into sales management, sales team, and also sales communication. I will speak today about sales communication, but I will give some ideas what the sales management and sales team are. I won't go into detail on those. Something we're going to focus today will be the sales communication and the outreach flow and the practical aspects, those that you need in the beginning. All right, all good. So let's go. I will speak about sales management first and then sales teams. It's a pyramid, and it goes from bottom to the top, just to be clear, because I have had people coming to me and asking that it doesn't make sense. So the foundation will be the hours, and it goes all the way up to the clients. What this pyramid represents is a measurable process and measurable actions. It's really important in sales management that you do have kind of like metrics in place that you will start measuring, because you do need to track and measure sales actions and also the results.
When should I start doing it? But if I'm like a small startup, I have like 3 people, maybe 5, and sales is mainly me as a founder. I'm doing sales among 1,000 other things I'm responsible for. All this stuff is in my head. Why the heck should I like measure it or set like clear KPIs? But I kind of know this stuff, and I'm not responsible to anybody else. But I don't have a manager. So why should I do it?
Well, the good answer would be that you need to be responsible for yourself, and often we're not. Even if you're alone, you need to measure and track things, because what happens is that like you're doing 100 or 1,000 other things, and at one point you will discover that you have literally no idea what's the statistics. You're doing 100 things, you are calling, you're sending emails, you're meeting people, and then maybe you have 1 or 2 clients. So getting those numbers in place, it's important to give you the feedback. So you have something you can analyze. That's like one of the things. Another thing is that I like to say, and something I learned from selling books door to door, was that control the controllables. It helps to reduce the emotions. Sales is tough, especially in the beginning, when your product is new, or maybe the product is not even ready yet, so you're looking for the market fit. You don't know whether there are going to be people who are going to buy. You don't know how many people are going to buy, who are going to buy. If you have numbers in place and you know that you put your work in, that you do your hours, you're making those phone calls, you're sending out those emails, and you have the client meetings, then it's easy for you to track those things and not to become emotional about it. It also applies when you actually start hiring, because your salespeople, they need some kind of guidance. What I've seen in most of the companies, even like big companies who have been in business for a while, is that they kind of think that I will hire salespeople, I will hire good salespeople.
Of course.
And then everything takes off. we're going to become market leaders within 4 months. Well, I mean, even if you're going to hire a kick-ass, really good salesperson, they still need to know like what's expected from them. Otherwise, they're going to be like hedgehogs in the mist. So you do need to have those numbers. Just a good example. I remember in the company I worked before I started my own business, it was an international company, and we were hiring salespeople. And there was a girl on an interview, and I was asking that how many outreaches or calls you are making per day. And she was like 125. I was like, mm-hmm. And she seemed really like kind of confident and happy about it. And I told her that, hey, like, I think you're lying. And she was really shocked, like, how come? And I was like, within 8 hours, you have 125 calls in the field of business you were in. It's impossible. Because I knew how many calls it's possible to make during that time. Like physically, it was just not possible. So maybe she was counting dials, or she just tried to impress me and leave us an impression that she's like a kick-ass salesperson. But I knew that it's not possible. So that's another thing, that you need to have those numbers in place, because you will see salespeople who are capable of doing 30, 40 calls per week. And you will see people who are going to make 5, because they're getting cues with the market and they're validating the clients and getting to touch.
All kinds of good excuses. Why don't I have a numbers? Just to give to the audience a ballpark of world-class sales systems. My favorite, Nazma Kurban from Cognism, building up a sales system from 0 to 8 million in 3 years. Their targets were that one sales guy has to do digital outreach to 1,000 new clients per week, and have a demo with 60. So this is what top-notch world-class level, that this is what's physically possible, repetitively in week after week way. And it's really good to know these numbers and to position that what's possible in our field and what me or my sales guys can actually do.
Yeah, that's one of the things. Another thing is that those numbers help you actually analyze the data, because like, let's say that you know that you're making 20 meetings, or your team makes 20 meetings per week, and you don't close any sales, like you have no clients coming. That's also a sign that there's something wrong. And it gives you a really good indication that if you know that I'm able to get the meetings, I'm good with that, but I can't close them. So you can actually like really focus on the last step and see what's wrong. Whether it's the product, whether there is no like need, or the pain is not there, or maybe the salesperson is just not closing. I've seen hundreds of salespeople who are not closing the sales. That's the biggest mistake. And all they say is that the product sucks, nobody wants it, nobody needs it. But it's just actually the thing that they don't know how to close. So that's why it's really important to have like the basics in place and have them controllable, especially when you're a startup. And one of the good things about the controllable numbers is that like people start from 0. Nobody knows how much you can sell. And the start will be rough. So it gives people some kind of like a focus, that they focus on their numbers. They focus on the controllable actions, and they know that eventually the sales will happen. So it's completely okay. Also, I brought out here the documentation. Kalev asked about it yesterday as well, that like it's really important to document things. Things that work, some really good stories, client stories that worked, some really good like questions that worked with the client, the flow maybe that worked, some of the steps that worked really well. So always write the things down, because you will have thousands of things and you just can't remember them later. So once you have the team, it's really easy to pass on those things. I've been asked a lot of times that, hey, like, when should I put together the sales playbook? I'm not sure if everybody knows what the sales playbook is, but literally sales playbook is a document or book, or however you want to call it. It's usually a document which has the whole flow in it, the whole sales cycle in it, like word for word. And I would say that you don't need it in the beginning. Don't worry about it. honestly, like don't put too much effort on having everything like fancily documented, having all those tools which you can imagine, like all those cool like gadgets and management systems and whatever. Like even if you ask from me that should you use Pipedrive in the beginning, I would say no. In the beginning, like when you don't have even clients or you have maybe one or two, like it's not that important. Like don't focus on those things, but mark the things down. That's the important part. And once you are there that you feel that you need to scale, then take those things and put them together into one place.
So
Alrighty.
yeah, just to paraphrase what you're saying, that with Pipedrive, they actually it used to be Pipedrive gave you Excel template which you can use when you are not there yet, but it already makes you organized enough that when you have to get this data to a Pipedrive, it's seamless. That you just upload it and it's there, and you don't have to change the labels of the columns or anything. So use something which is easy and write down what works and what doesn't work. That this is your like pre-playbook phase. That don't worry about like writing a playbook, because you're learning, your main like outcome is learning about customers, figuring out which segment is like big enough for me to make my sales quota, but at the same time small enough that it's easy to target. So you're learning constantly. So the playbook would change like in every, like, I don't know, 3 weeks or something.
It will.
And so it's easier that or very important is sharing the stories and like the sentences. Like if you are doing the cold outreach phone calls or whatever, what's the first 10 seconds which works? That what did you use to, how long these guys could talk to you before dropping off, or what doesn't work? That I try this and like 1 out of 10 listens. So that writing this stuff down is very valuable. Doing anything else or beyond it, not so much.
I completely agree on it. Like just as an example, like parking has been now in business for 5-6 years, somewhere there. And I just finished delivering them the playbook that we put together. So, and I if you ask like were they late, I don't think so, because everything was in Gustav's head. Like he's a genius in that point. He's a genius salesperson. And now we were going through the whole system and actually like made the sales playbook, and they hired their salespeople. And that was the right moment, I would say. It's hard to put the playbook together if you even don't know maybe that how the like closing part looks like, because you're not there yet. So don't worry about it. About the sales team, that's another thing that's really important. And I see usually 2 options. Like the first option is in startups that the sales is done by the founder, and that's how it should be. I mean, the founder is the person who knows their product inside out. They know their market inside out. They have the passion for it. Like it's a natural thing. Like if you as a founder go there and speak about your product, it's completely different if like a really good salesperson whose product it's not is going to go there. So if you're a starting startup, then like please don't go and start searching sales team right away. You need to do the work. I've seen a lot of founders telling me that I have like 150 things that I need to do. And like, I would like to have a sales team who's going to take care of everything, especially with the startups who haven't had any sales yet. That's your job. Don't put that responsibility away.
I totally agree with you that I've seen also in Super Angel portfolio. A rule of thumb is that the best salesperson is a founder. Even if they are engineer, even if they haven't done sales never in their life, they are still the best person because they have passion behind the product, and there's no way you can like replicate that into a salesperson. So the founder is always here, the salesperson, the best salesperson in the world is like 80% of a founder or something like this. And you can't in the beginning hire the best salesperson in the world. So the guys you can get are like 60% of you. And the difficulty is often that how to mimic how to give the right messages and tools to the sales guys that they can replicate the results what you can as a founder, that how to give them something else which helps them to overcome the lack of not being the founder.
Yeah, but it's a natural thing. Like if you said it's like 60%, I would say that like if in a startup, like you can literally hire a junior salespeople. That's what you can do, and they will be like 30% of your skills. So yeah, you need to do the work. I rather encourage you to hire somebody to do some admin stuff that you usually spend quite a bit of time as well. Like delegate that one away, but sales is something you shouldn't delegate away. That should be your number one priority. Okay, the second option is that you kind of get into the point when you're going to actually have employees. You will have the salespeople in the team. And what happens then is that, like, usually founders, it's really cute how they say that I was able to close 8 people out of 10, and they're selling only to 2 people. And like I told, it's completely okay. It correlates to the previous point that I brought, and also to the fact that if you don't have systems in place, then it's really hard for the salespeople to kind of get the idea what they need to do anyway. So that's why, going back to the previous point, have the KPIs in place. The next difficulty will be that, like, how to find that salesperson. So you are ready to hire, you want to have those salespeople. It's really hard to find salespeople. I will say it right away. It's super hard to find good salespeople, especially to a startup, because your funds are limited. Your product is not ready yet. Your like brand image is not there, and so on. So there will be a lot of like complications in this sense. And top-notch salespeople who have a proven track record, like you just can't get them. That's what it is. So how to find it? I found the people, like, be creative. Don't overthink again. That's the part that I see most people are overthinking. I was reading an article from LinkedIn. I can't recall. It was a sales manager of a really big American company. The name doesn't come to me, but he was hiring a lot of junior level salespeople. And one of the things that he said was that, like, hire fast and fire fast. And I truly believe into it. With the salespeople, it is that my experience, like I've hired around maybe 200 salespeople in my life. And my experience is that it doesn't matter how good gut feeling you have, like those people you like the most and they were the most promising on an interview, they may end up like literally quitting the next day. So of course there are things you need to look at, but like don't be too emotional about it. So hire fast. If you feel that the feeling is good, the person seems to be pretty fine, then don't overthink. And again, if the feeling is not good anymore and they don't deliver, they don't bring results, they have a shitty attitude, then be ready to fire fast. That's what it is with salespeople. Alrighty. And another thing that I wanted to speak about salespeople maybe was that I told that you as a founder, you need to make the sales. If you have the team, then one thing to keep in mind is that don't think that now when you have the sales team, they need to be on their own. Your role as a founder is still lead the sales team. And you still need to be their example, and you still need to make some outreaches as well. Because they need somebody who's going to work with them. It won't be this way that come to my like company and just figure it out. They need somebody who's going to be there, like guiding them and helping them.
So we have one question from Jorge, that we have sold 13 deals, some recurring, in the last 3 months. We don't have previous professional sales experience. When is a good time to find someone else to help with the sales? And sales, what we are doing is around 2,000 2K MRR.
I would say that like there's two things. When you feel yourself that now it's the time that I do need some support, and when you're ready to scale. My question is that like if you're gonna get a person and they're gonna sell extra like 40, 50 clients per month, are you willing to manage it? Like, is everything ready? Like, is your like customer service set up, or like do your developers handle it? So this is another thing to consider, that like if you hire somebody and they actually start bringing in the sales, is your company ready for it? So that would be my answer.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, but I will leave the sales team here because like I promised, I will speak about the sales communication today because that's the most important part for me. And I kind of tend to think that this is something you should pay the most attention. Yesterday, we were speaking about the validation. This time there is like some part of it in it as well, because the sales communication also includes the validation. But it's in a form that like you should ask like, who is your client? Who is your client persona? Like if you're validating the market, then yesterday we spoke about it as well, that you can't sell to everybody. I mean, like you can't have the product that fits for everyone. I don't know if it's not a toothbrush or like toothpaste. Most of the things are not for everybody. So think through who is your client. Kalev was bringing an example that there was a company that was targeting only investment bankers in New York, and there was some specification.
Yeah, it was like if you are opening up a boutique gym in New York, that it's boutique, hence they have to be rich guys. So let's make it's bankers, it's in 30s and 40s, and it seems that it's enough. That it's that I have segmented it enough, but from a mom test, Rob says that it's not enough. That it's still too broad. That in order to understand the pain and see the patterns, what the customers actually want and what makes them happy, you should go deeper. And he suggested it's on top of this, what said before, you add that the guys who are training for a New York marathon, which happens in like next year or something like this, and who are doing the trainings during lunch hours.
Yeah, so that's specific. That was their client. Let's say that you're a company who's like has some kind of CRM. So think about it. Who's your client? Whether they're accountants, law firms, businesses, sales organizations, whoever. Why it's important is that like each client is different, and the selling arguments are different. The selling cycle is different. The length, how long the whole like cycle and the closing takes place, that's different. The arguments are different. So you need to really think through who's your client or who are your clients. There can be several of them as well. I have worked with a company, it was a healthcare company whose clients were one hand private customers, like private people, regular people. So it was B2C sales. And also their clients were doctors, hospitals. So it was B2B in that sense. So it's kind of like you need to figure it out, but they're completely two different kind of personas. So your clients, there's two types of them. You need to figure it out. Then also you need to kind of understand what problem your product is solving. If your product is not solving any problem, then you will have a problem.
And it's also like how important this problem is. In case of B2B, rule of thumb of Kalev is that if your problem is not in the top 5 of your target persona, or whatever, you are selling to a financial manager, you're selling to HR manager, or you're selling to CEO, if it's not in the top 5, it's bloody hard to sell them because it's not a priority. It's nice to have, but yeah, maybe next year, come back next year.
So figure out the problem, because this is how you build up your selling points. You're not selling features, but you're selling value and benefits. So that's the important aspect on it. Then I will speak how to write out the sales communication steps. and how to kind of have the outreach flow. And I will also bring you examples. I will have them on the wall. No, not on the wall this time, but on the screen. And I will also send you some examples. I mentioned the sales playbooks. I won't send any examples of those because it's too ready for you guys. But once you feel that after some time you're ready, come and ask. I can share the ideas. I will speak about outreach flow because that's also part of the sales communication. And I will go back to the documentation and collecting the information because I think I will speak about it 100 times, but it's so crucial. It's so important. Especially when you start hiring at one day, then you do need to have something for them. You just can't like give them a desk and a chair and a phone and say that, hey, go. So that's why you need to document the things. Okay, but I will show you a sales cycle. I think most of you have seen it. Possibly you have seen a bit different versions of it. The steps might be a bit differently named or called, but the idea behind it is the same. And each sales meeting or the sales like cycle, they're kind of the same and they should be the same. It's really important to follow these steps because otherwise you will end up having that problem that most salespeople have, that they forgot to close or they forgot to cover the objections or they forgot to follow up or so on. So,
what if a customer forces me to skip some steps, or they go right to price or something like this?
Again, you will have a problem. I would say this way, that you do need to follow the sales cycle and you can't skip the steps. There may be some really rare cases where you can jump from one step to another, but it's not this way that like I will jump from the introduction to a price build-up and forget to do the demonstration and covering objections and so on. So some of the steps sometimes you can shorten or like kind of back together, but you really can't miss any of them because it will backfire.
If a customer asks about the price, I give some indication and then go back to doing my demo.
Possibly it will be a lost deal then, because if you do the things in the wrong order, then it will be a pure luck that's going to save you, honestly. I remember when I was, it's a funny example, but when I was selling books door to door, and it was my last summer, I had a really good summer. It was one of my best summers, and I think it was like almost last week or something. So I was heading to hit my best week ever, which is really hard at the end of the summer because you're super tired. And I remember that like from morning on, I started like getting objections that like, I need to speak with my husband. I need to speak with my husband. And I was like, what the hell, what's wrong with them? And I went home in the evening and I took the sales pitch out and I was reading it through and I was like, okay, I forgot to cover the husband objection. It was literally built into the sales script. And that day somehow I forgot to cover it. And I was literally like hit by the fact that like I forgot it.
You missed a step.
I missed it. And that was what it was. You really can't go behind the door and say that, hey, can I speak with your husband again as well? Because I already had told the price. So what happens when I went behind the door like that, the husband came on the door and said, hey, honey, like, I think we're not interested because honestly, I'm not going to buy books that cost like 700 euros. So lesson learned, don't do it. But today I will focus on only one part. I will speak about the first contact. I won't have any time to cover the rest of it because it will take a week. The first contact is the most crucial and most important because if you're not capable to have a good first contact, then you won't have rest of the cycle anyways. So let's jump into. So what's the purpose of the first contact? I will speak what it is as well because quite often it will be asked. The whole purpose of it is to gain attention. You are not selling anything yet. In B2B sales, it's almost, I would say, almost impossible to sell anything within the first meeting. So just keep it in mind. You will have quite long sales cycle based on the product, based on the implementation time, on the price, and so on. But in B2B world, sales cycles are quite long. There will be a lot of decision makers. The processes, especially when they're big companies or your clients, it goes from one department to another. It needs to go to the board. It comes back from the board and so on. So you won't solve anything with one phone call. I promise you that.
Only, I guess, in case if you're selling to one-man shops or like very small ones, that if you get the owner on the phone, he's the sole decision maker. And if a problem is acute enough and the cost is not big enough, then you might close it. But it's more like selling like a magazine subscription to somebody that either take it or not, and that's it. That it's a numbers game.
Yeah, quite impossible, I would say. So that's the purpose of it. So what is a first contact? That's something that I've been asked quite a lot as well. It will be the first time you're contacting the person or your prospect. It can be done over the phone. So you're going to make a phone call, a cold call, maybe a referral call. It will be either email, it can be a LinkedIn message, it can be a Facebook message, whatever message. It can be in person on some like trade shows, for example, or you bump into a person. Possibly you just randomly don't go and knock on the door, but that has happened as well in B2B world. I remember I had a CEO of one of the company that I couldn't catch anyhow. And by accident, I saw him in a restaurant eating lunch. And I was thinking, should I go or should I not? And I was like, okay, like that's my chance. So in person, I showed up and I was like, hey, I'm sorry, but I have something for you. So it ended up pretty fine. So don't be afraid. So there can be other communication channels as well, but main channels will be emails, will be phone calls. LinkedIn is really popular, I think, now in Europe.
Depends on the industry. If you are in construction business, then most likely you don't get the older generation owners. So you might get the middle level guys in their 30s. So be careful. If you are in some conservative industries, digital marketing and digital channels won't work for you. So it's literally phone calls and knocking on the doors.
On the doors. Actually, it's a good point. If you're choosing the right channel, then think about your industry and think about the clients and the clients' personas. With parking, I was speaking with Gustas, and it was really interesting in the beginning because for most of the startups, when we build the sales systems and outreach funnels, then it's always emails, LinkedIn, phone. And with parking, they literally like either like make a phone call or they need to appear and be in front of that person because nobody reads emails. They even don't know how to use a smartphone. That's what he said to me. And I was like, are you kidding me? And I was like, nope, this is how it is. So there, for example, they even don't have the email like outreaching flow because nobody reads emails in their business. So think about it. I know construction was one. There can be others. So you really need to consider.
You can also ask a CheckSpot founder who is in this Basecamp. He's also found that small restaurants face-to-face actually showing up. It's the best way to close the deal. And then they are set because the churn is very non-existing, because if you have closed the deal over face-to-face, it's almost impossible to close a deal over phone that somebody else calls and makes a better offer over phone. So in some industries, you can't use this fancy stuff, but in most cases, luckily, the startups are in a world where LinkedIn outreach and emails are very good source of first contacts.
Yeah, and you also need to think what's efficient for you, because like in this sense, showing up might be a better deal because people trust you more. But like if your business means that, like, I don't know, the subscription is 10 euros per month and you need to literally gain like 1,000 clients per month, then it's not really thinkable to go and knock on the doors. So you need to kind of figure that one through as well, like what's the most efficient way, how do you make your first contact. But I would mix and match different ones because then you will start seeing what works the best.
And the rule of thumb is that if in B2B world, what you sell brings you in less than 500 euros, using a personal sales guy is waste of money. That the funnel and the mathematics and of a funnel won't work. That it has to be annual revenue, or like 2 years annual revenue has to be more than 500. Then it's feasible and scalable to use a personal sales guy.
Yeah, well, it's kind of the customer acquisition cost, not even in money, but also in time, because that's something you need to consider as well. Okay, but I will focus today speaking about the email and the written form outreach. And one of the questions I will have for every one of you is that, like, what do you think, how much time do you have to catch the person interest?
So this is a time where you can
type in some
type
cool
in
answers.
some numbers.
So what do you think? How much time do you have to catch the person's interest if you're sending a written form outreach, whether an email message, LinkedIn message, Facebook message? So fast fingers.
Not so fast.
Not so fast. Maybe I'm speaking only to myself.
No, we have an audience.
So what Kalev thinks?
So what I think that I know that in modern world the attention span is like really shortened. So I would assume that it's actually in like seconds. That I would assume that if I get like the email, that I look at the header of email, I can read the header of an email in 5 seconds or like 10 seconds, so that to grasp is it worth to open it, or so if it's not interesting in these 5 to 10 seconds, then I'm not going to open it. So I would say something in between 5 to 10 seconds.
It's actually less than 20 seconds. So up to 20 seconds is what they say in a written form. The warmer the contact, the longer it is. So if you meet in person, then it can be 60 seconds. Then you're gone in 60 seconds. So yeah, it's less than 20 seconds. And the good point was that nowadays, like most of our emails appear on the smartphones, like you will have the message box. And this is how we usually kind of tend to decide whether it's important or not. Are we going to open the email or not? Yeah, so you will have this
we got
one
few
sentence.
Answers also, like from 6 to 2 seconds or 30 seconds to a couple of minutes, depending on the subjects.
Okay. Well, I will say that this 2 second and 30 second was pretty good. 2 minutes, nope, nobody's going to take that time. 2 minutes is a long time. If you can't catch the interest within some seconds, you're gone.
We had 6 and 2 seconds. Sorry, my bad.
Okay, it was like 2 minutes. No, yeah. So you will have not too much time. And during that time, when you make either the phone call or you send out the email, and the person sees that, like for example, me, I don't know Kalev, and I get an email from Kalev Kaarna, then what do you think? What is the thing that people think while they're like seeing or listening a person they don't know? You can make the offers.
So yeah, type in to a chat. What's your best guess?
What are the first thoughts that come into the person's head if somebody is contacting them whom they don't know? I will give you some time.
Is this spam? Came one answer.
Yes, that can be one thing. Is this spam? You know how it works when you get a phone call from a number you don't know, like what are you selling? Anything else? Any ideas? What's the process that starts like rolling in your head when you see something or hear something you don't know?
So I give my version that it's who are you? What do you want from me? And how much time it's going to take?
Jumped into. Yeah, Kalev was correct. The first question will be, who is it? So you hear somebody's voice or you see somebody's name, you don't know. Who is it? The second question usually that comes to our head is that, like, what are you selling? What is he selling? Because that's what usually happens. Then you will ask, am I interested? How long does it take? And should I listen now? These are the main questions that usually come to people's minds. And why these questions are important is that your actions should be built up based on these questions. So if person is thinking, who is it? What are they selling? How long it's going to take? Am I interested? Then this is how you should respond. That should be the logical pattern how you're responding to people. So how to build interest in less than 30 seconds or 20 seconds? I have a theory, and I've been testing it with several startups, and it's been working fine. And it's not actually my theory, but most B2B successful companies use similar idea, is that you should use three things while you're doing your outreaches. So one of the most important part is that you need to describe your target. Who's the person you are targeting? And by the way, Kalev mentioned that the emails that the templates I'm sharing with you, they're GDPR compliant. This is now also tied with the GDPR compliance, because in B2B world, you are allowed to target people, like specifically people, not like some random mass emailing. But if you're emailing to a person who's an executive or like VP of sales in some other company, it's completely okay. So you're describing the position that whether you're writing to all the CEOs of this industry or the VPs of sales or HR heads or whoever, then the company type as well. Because what happens is that you're really specific. I speak with all the CEOs of IT companies. So what happens is that this person who's like receiving the email is like, I am a CEO of an IT company. Interesting.
So it's kind of a fear of missing out,
yeah.
that if this person is talking to all those of my competitors in my field, that maybe there's something I might be missing.
And you also feel that it's me.
Yeah.
He's speaking or she's speaking about me. And also the location. The location is important because that also narrows down. So you won't have this feeling that this email is meant for like 30,000 other people, but it's actually CEOs of the IT company in Tallinn. Okay, this is me. So, interesting. So the next part, which is really important, is the key selling point, which you should add into your email. The key selling point, what it is. That's the sentence, literally, I would say, or the phrase that says what's the value you're offering. And I will repeat, it's a value that you're offering, not the features. The main mistake that I see when I read different kind of value propositions or the emails that I receive is that I see a list of features.
As a easy example to grasp, but if I'm selling a high pixel camera, high number of pixels, it's not value, it's feature. Value is that you can print high quality marketing materials, or you can use this stuff and it's not fuzzy when you print it out in large scale.
Yeah. So it should be short. Don't use like 5 sentences long KSPs. People will lose the track. It should be really short and sweet. And one of the most important thing with it is that it should be really general, because if you're, especially when you're doing cold outreach, then you can't be too specific, because with the key selling points, the thing is that some things work with some people, some things won't, because the needs are different. That's why when we are working on building the sales structures and the outreach funnels and flows, we actually write down like tons of different KSPs. And later when I show you the examples, then you will get an idea as well why it's important to have different KSPs. Also, the KSP should create some kind of mystery. It's kind of, you read it and then you're like, and people will ask, how do they do that? Or how does it work? That's a good key selling point, when it kind of sparks the interest, but it doesn't say out everything. That people will have the question like, how does it work? For example, what me and Katrin we help to increase sales efficiency. Instead of like, hey, we are sales consultants. We help to increase sales efficiency. Most of times people ask from, how do you do that? Tell me more. I want to know more. And that's what you need to do.
I think that in this sales efficiency, increasing sales efficiency, interesting part is that if you would say just I help to increase sales, it's boring. That all the sales consultants promise that they help to increase sales, but you have added increasing sales efficiency. So sales efficiency is something like you don't talk about every day. You as a founder or a CEO. You become curious at what the heck do they mean. But I definitely want to increase everything which is related to my sales, but I haven't had a meeting with my team about sales efficiency. So what the heck it is? So very smart.
Mm-hmm. So it's like you need to figure it out, how to do it, how to put the good key selling points together. Like today we won't have time to cover it, so you can just write to me. I can maybe give you some good tips. But this is definitely a part where you need to spend a lot of time working on. The third part that's important to add to your outreach or to your emails will be the names. Now I will get the question that, but what if I don't have any customers? It's completely okay. You can use the names of the people you have talked to, people who have validated your product, for example, people who have said something good about it. If you have customers, use the customers' names. The more power names you have, the better it is. It would be good if you use the names that are in the same industry, because then what happens is that the companies or the people might know each other. Like in IT sector, for example, if I call to Rain and say that, hey, I spoke with Taavi Kotka, and I spoke with Veljo, and I spoke with Marek Kiisa, I spoke with X and Y, he knows all those people. So he's already like, okay, so what did you speak with them? It kind of like builds trust in one point. Another way, it makes people usually curious as well. If you don't have the names which are connected or in the same industry, it's completely fine in the beginning, but use names.
So as soon as you get the names, use them. If you don't have them, don't worry about it too much.
Yeah, you shouldn't too much. It's also completely okay to use your, like, not the enemies, but the competitors' names. Sometimes I've been asked that, like, hey, if I don't know, email to Wolt, should I use the Bolt food name because they're competitors? Yeah, it's completely fine, because usually what starts happening then is that they will think that, okay, so they spoke with the Bolt as well. So what they were speaking about, am I missing out something? It creates the fear of missing out. So definitely, like, don't be afraid to use it. Another thing with the names is that, like, in B2B world, I haven't experienced it. Of course, if you do have maybe customers who contracts are like fully disclosed and you can't use their names, but in B2B world, it's completely fine usually, so you shouldn't worry. In B2C, it can be more complicated, so you should be aware of it. Alrighty, that's with the names. And then I have a fourth, the bonus thing is the call to action. So always please add the call to action. This is thing that I see missing the most. I receive emails with an offer. It always, like, even looks good. It's kind of like short and sweet and interesting. And then it ends in a way that, like, hey, we provide 3.5 different options, this and that, and have a nice day, best. And my question will be, what should I do with this information? So if I'm interested, should I email? Should I not? Maybe I can deal with it like next month. Okay, I will just put it aside. Most of the emails are missing the call to action. And before I show you the actual like samples, I'm so used with the screens on the screen, then I will bring out some common mistakes of the emails that I've seen that have been sent out, the cold emails. Too long, didn't read. Somewhere around 1 page long emails. Don't do that. You present all the information at once. Don't do that, please. Because if they don't respond, you need to kind of follow up, and then you have nothing to present anymore. Don't add any 2 pages long PDFs or any kind of PDFs into the initial email. Like, just don't do it. By the GDPR, you actually can't do it. And there is no call to action. That's one I mentioned already. So here's one example. If you see the subject line, then I like personally to use this kind of intriguing subject lines. It can be meeting tomorrow, call on Tuesday, call next week. Why do I do that?
Meeting at that date.
Yeah. When Kalev sees it, then first thing in his head is like, oh shoot, what did I forget? And he's gonna open the email. And I'm not lying, because if you read through the email, then you see that at the end, I'm actually offering a meeting on that day. So a bit tricky, haven't had anybody getting mad at me. And now when I mentioned those 3 things, then they're all built in here. I always use the first name of the person when I'm emailing, not like dear Mr. Kaarna, but it will be dear Kalev. And I'm writing because I'm responsible for meeting with the CEOs of startup companies in Tallinn.
Does this first name thing work in every culture? That there are some maybe like a German type of thing where you have to say professor,
doctor.
If they have double doctors, you have to say actually double.
Triple. The only country I know where people feel insulted is Poland, where you need to use the last name. The Germans are so I wouldn't worry about them. But Poland is what I've heard, really exception on it. Otherwise, no worries. Then if you go back, then I remember I told you that you should describe the position, the company area, and the location, then CEOs, startup companies in Tallinn, to share ideas about increasing sales efficiency. So that's my key selling point. As you can see, it's really short. Then I'm using names. I've already met with some people you might know, like Rain Ranno from Super Angel, Rando Rannus from Estban, and so on. Using the power names, the names that the person might know. And then I'm going into what I want and to the call to action. So I wanted to see if you have 15 minutes, have a short call. Would it work better for you next Tuesday at 11 or Wednesday afternoon? And that's it. That's literally how my first cold email looks like. It's not that cold because I'm using names. It's really short and it can be shocking. There is no value proposition. I don't speak more what I do, because the whole idea or the purpose that I told was to gain attention. You're not selling anything. You're gaining an attention. You want to have a short call where you can discuss whether there is a point to meet or not. Second sample, a bit different one, especially when you're more bold. You can use it, is that, hey, dear Kalev, I'm getting in touch with an idea I can explain in 5 minutes. I can help Super Angel win 200 work hours per year. So that's the key selling point. I'm helping to win 200 work hours per year.
So it's value. It doesn't say anything about your features. It doesn't say anything about the benefits. It's a value that they can get this. Or we can argue that maybe it is a benefit that the value would be what I would do with this 200 hours, but it's definitely not the feature.
But it sparks interest because I want to know, how do you do it? How? Tell me how. Me and clicker doesn't work too well. And also, I'm using names here again. IDEA was recently used to help my client Garage 48, Lift 99, and their measurable benefits were even greater. Can I schedule a 5-minute call? Again, call to action next Tuesday or Wednesday afternoon. Really short, really brief. And if you noticed in both emails, I'm kind of giving already the specific time, how long the call will take, either 5 minutes, 15 minutes. And I will actually have a call which will be that long. I'm not lying here. So it will be the indication that it will be short. So these are the 2 templates, for example, that I've been using as a first outreach, and they have been working really well. It can be in a bit different wording, but just remember the basics, the 3 different elements. Name, position, location, call to action, all those things need to be included. KSPs.
Yeah, and just also example from one of our startups who went to Oslo for business fair there, and they used the same template model. They reached out to 50 companies in Oslo region to see if they can meet during this 1 week they are there. And out of 50, if I remember correctly, something around 20 companies sent back that yes, why not? That I'd like to learn more.
So it works. I've had like quite a bit of clients already in my portfolio, and it just works. I know it's pretty shocking that how come that I don't send more. Sometimes it even like sounds arrogant to some people. I use it every day when I'm fundraising for the science studios as well. This is what I use, and like nobody has been mad at me. It's a business. Like everybody want to have straightforward things. What do you want? How long it's gonna take? If there is a point, we're gonna speak. If not, we won't. That's it.
How many, based on your experience, how many reply back to you that okay, I might take the call, but I really didn't get what you want from me?
I'm not gonna get there.
Okay.
So I will bring you some examples now, and that's a really relevant question. It depends on the industry and the quality of the leads, meaning that the people who you're going to target, and also the pain in the industry. For example, GuestJoy, it's a company who's offering complimentary services for hotels. Their flow looked like that. They had the first email, like I described, with a short key selling point, names and call to action. If it didn't trigger the response, then after 2 or 3 days, they sent another one with a longer key selling point. So literally, they kind of explained more what they do. Again, used names and call to action. If that one didn't trigger the response, there was a third email saying that, hey, I see you have no time, so let me call you. So you make a change of channel because maybe a person doesn't read the emails, or maybe they just don't reply to the emails. Sometimes when you send out that email, then you will get a response because they don't want you to call. But any kind of reply is good. Then you will change the channel in case you don't receive anything. So either make a call or use the LinkedIn, for example. And that's what it is. So now you're going to ask me, are you insane? There is like 4 different steps to target one person. I'm not insane. That's what the outreach process or the flow means. Because what happens in most cases is that you have a full database or list of prospects, and then you send out the emails or you make the calls, and then you're waiting and waiting. So let's say you sent out 1,000 emails and you get 1 reply. That's it. And that's a bad thing when it happens, especially when you don't have like a million different email addresses to use. So the follow-up process is really important because sometimes people open the email and they just don't have time to reply, or they forget. I do it all the time. I just forget. So it's really good to remind them, hey, I'm here. Sometimes the first key selling point didn't kind of like speak in this sense, and they didn't care. So if you have a really good flow, then eventually it will trigger some kind of response. It can be that they will eventually write you that like, please stop emailing me. That's also a good reply because you know that there's no point to target these people anymore. So now if you're asked from me, like if you're sending out 100 cold emails, if it's cold emails, then I would say that somewhere around 10% get an answer. The company you were bringing an example in Norway's case, like their response rate was insane. So it means that they did have really good quality prospect pool, I would say this way, or there was a need. Usually 9-10% is completely fine. So if you shoot out 100 emails, if you get 9 or 10 replies, you're already good.
And this is also culture specific. That talked with Pia from Macenta, who is selling in different countries, and she says that based on her experience, and she's targeting like telcos and banks and anybody whose text messages are mission critical. That in very example is that in Europe it's reasonable to expect to get a response after 3 or 4 emails. In US, you should be worried if you haven't got the response after 10 emails. So that in US, you have to double actually the intensity in order to get the feedback. And it's totally normal. People are used to this intensity, and anything beyond 10 or below 10 is actually kind of not, you are not asking enough. But so be aware that we are kind of worried that am I spamming my customers? They will tell you if it's gets to their understanding of spam. But in US, 10 emails in a short sequence is not the spam.
Yeah, that's one thing to consider, that don't be afraid. It's completely okay. There are different reasons why they don't get replies. And another thing, what's good with it, if you have sent 1 or 2 emails and then you need to make that call, you can always refer back to that call. So your phone call won't be that cold anymore. You can say that, hey, I sent you an email a couple of days ago and I haven't received a response. And then they're like, you hear that, how the brain starts thinking behind the phone. And they're like, okay, who is it? What was it? And they're trying to find the email from the mailbox. It's okay. So don't worry about it. But it will be already some kind of rapport that's built there. So I sent you an email. I haven't received a response. You have a couple of minutes, we can speak. So another example with the flow, because like I told, there is no like right or wrong answers on it. The outreach flow can be a bit different. Like this is one health tech company that we work with, and their flow in the beginning was the same as guest choice. But when we were testing it out, then we discovered that it doesn't work this way. So we needed to change it, and that's completely fine. In sales, you do need to change things after every 3 weeks, like Kalev said. So here you can see how it went, that like the email went out. If it didn't get a reply, they actually already called in because they saw that that's the fastest method. And then again, email, call, and then at the end you can see that they also sent the breakup email. So what is it? The breakup emails actually work really well. I trigger answers with them. It's kind of the email where you say that, hey, I see you have been really busy. I won't bother you. I will get in touch with you after like 6 months or so. Or I see that this topic is not relevant currently, so bye. And I've triggered quite a bit of responses because then people feel that, okay, now it's serious. Now she's saying that she's like gone. And sometimes they reply, sometimes they don't. But what's good with it is that it gives them indication that, hey, after 6 months, I will come back. And you will come back. So that's another thing you need to do. So don't be afraid to use them. Example 3 was the Cognis that you mentioned as well. And as you told that they do make 1,000 outreaches per rep in a week. And it's kind of the same. It's built in that they have this intro email with the KSP. They have the call. Then they send again the email that, hey, you never replied nor pick up the phone. So, hey, where are you? And so on. So it's pretty much the same. And works fine. Okay, to sum it up, long story short, the goal of the first contact is to get attention, not to sell anything, and also to get the meeting. You want to get the meeting with a person or the longer phone call where you can introduce the things. Describe the target, use the key selling point, use the names, and have the call to action. Like, don't forget to add call to action. So have a process. Outline yourself. How is your flow looking like? Whether it's going to be an email, call. It's going to be email, call. So figure it out, test, see what works. If you see that for example, the email flow is taking too long to get responses, but the calling works, send an email, make a call. Why not? Try out things, test. Okay, and we're almost done. If I can work around with this clicker. You see, I went too far. So literally, like what I wanted to say as a summary for the end is that you can have as many resources available, but if you don't know how to use them, there won't be any use of them. So that's the point. Like, you can know all the ninja tricks and tips, but if you don't use them, there is no use of them. So rather choose some of the things and start using them. Even if it's one or two things, focus on those, but use them. That's it from me.
Awesome.
Any questions?
So option for teams to ask questions. So we have one coming in from Kristin. Call to action. How straightforward does it have to be? Meaning like, let's have a chat versus book a Calendly slot now.
That's a good question. I don't recommend to use Calendly, and there is a reason behind. I would offer a specific time, and the more specific you can be, the better it is. It helps to plan your own things as well. Calendly links need action from the other side. They need to go somewhere.
Extra action.
It's an extra action, so don't use it. It kind of creates the feeling, hey, here's my calendar, choose what you want. I have a good friend who's she's a HR director for the huge law company, KPMG. And one of the things that she said that frustrates her the most if she gets the sales emails is that people don't offer specific times. She told that she's so busy. And if she needs to start thinking, okay, what time works for me and what time might work for him, then she's like, I don't want to deal with it. And she's like, when I get an email where they offer me 2 times, I will check my calendar. And if actually something works, I will just put it into the calendar. If it doesn't, I see that I can do it an hour later. I'm going to reply that, hey, like Wednesday's fine, but can we do at 12 instead of 11? It's really like straightforward. So you should like be the one who holds the ball.
And I guess this is also a situation where there's no right and wrong answer. That test it out. If it Calendly works in your industry with your targets, fine, awesome. If it doesn't, don't use it.
Yeah.
And also, like, should I offer 1 time slot or 2 slots? Test it out. There's like no right and wrong answer. It's your customers, your target group. You have their behaviors, and it's industry specific. So whatever works in your industry, use it. And the only way you can find out which works is writing stuff down.
And testing. I mean, like in sales, we tend to tell that like use choice of 2 positives. So give 2 options because it just gives a bit more options for people. Don't give too many because then people get confused. There has been several studies and research is made that, for example, there was one where like some kind of new brand of jam was brought into the market. And when there was already 6 different types of the jam, like people didn't buy anymore because they were like overwhelmed which one I should choose. So having a choice between 2 and 3 options is enough. Don't give too many because then it starts confusing. But Kalev's point is good. There is no right or wrong answers. Like I told, these are my experiences that I've seen have been working. Some things might work differently for you. It's fine. Just have the courage to test the things and have the process. That's my message. Even if it's not written down in a fancy playbook, just have the process in place and start from somewhere. Start testing, because if like this Vive, the healthcare company's example was really good, that like we assumed something, but in reality it turned out differently. So we shouldn't like stick with the old versions that we see don't work.
And just as a reminder that when Kristi was showing us a sales cycle, you can use the same logic even when you are not selling yet anything, or that you can't, you are more in a customer discovery phase, trying to figure out what's pain point, is this the right target or not. You can still use the same logic to outreach. And what's different is that during the first call, you have to validate that does this guy have a problem I assume they have. And I was really pleased today in having a call with one of the startups in Basecamp, that they did it by the book. That yesterday they had 4 meetings with potential like clients. and they didn't, during these meetings, they didn't tell what they are building. That they asked about what the customers is currently using, what kind of problems they have with this, and today they are going to back to these same customers with a feature list. That if we build this, like we listened to you yesterday, if we build this, would it add value to you? So like the sales cycle process, how I do the first calls and contacts, the outreach is the same, just the questions and the like content of the meeting is totally different. And I think this like crucial to understand that sometimes it's too early to start selling, that you have to do the customer discovery and understanding the problems first.
Even if it's a validation, but even if the product is ready and you're going out and selling it, then like it's still important to follow those steps, because like I told, B2B sales is not this way that I'm gonna show up and I'm gonna close you. It will take time. You need to have like the warm up. Then like after this first contact, you will have either a longer call or the meeting where you're gonna figure out whether there is a need and interest or is there not. And it can end up that there won't. So that, for example, after this longer phone call, there won't be any meeting because you both figure out that like there's no point to meet because maybe now is not the right time.
And this is, I think, a crucial thing that if your sales guys have a liberty to say no, in a startup, it's like bloody difficult because you have to bring the money in. So or your sales guy have an urge to say always yes, we are selling you, yes, we can do this, and then like a development guys are like, what the hell, it's impossible, what the hell have you sold? The reason why the sales guy should have a liberty to say no is because if you get the customer who is not your not easy to serve, they start to ask feature requests which you don't plan to build in like next 5 years. They are complaining, they need attention, they are not a good reference to any other customers, so they just consume time and don't bring in enough value which would help to grow your company. It's a tricky thing, like talking with one of fast-growing Estonian company startup. They said that they actually are in pain right now because of a few big clients they took on just for the sake of names in the beginning. And they kind of knew that they are not the ideal customers, but hey, they were willing to pay, so why not take them? And now they are in a situation where 20 people of their development team have to service these 2 customers.
So yeah, maybe that's a good part where I think maybe you should let those clients go. But yeah, it's don't over jump of the things and don't oversell in this sense as well. That if it's completely okay, if you feel that you're not a good match with the client or the prospect, then it's okay to say that, hey, I think we're not ready for you, or like, hey, I think we're not a good fit at the moment. I have had like sales consulting meetings where like I've been selling my service and I see that like the client is not ready, or they see that like we're not a good fit, and it's okay. I feel really well. I have had clients that in the past I've said that I think we're not a good fit, and they have actually called after 6 months or a year and said that, hey, I think now it's time that we can work together. Yeah, it's not burning the bridges and being honest. And that's something that the clients really evaluate, because they know that you didn't try to sell them hard, that you had this integrity and you were honest, and it can bring return later on.
Just as an example, one of the startups in our portfolio, they had participated in one event where he had like meeting with different mentors, and the mentor they liked the most was the digital marketing expert, who after listening to their industry said that you don't need a digital marketing expert, that you need some other way how to reach out to your customers, because you are in construction business and you can't reach out through the typical digital channels. So this built like the trust in that person, that digital marketing guy is willing to tell me the truth, even if it hurts his business. So this is like reputation you want to build, and that's why people come back to you.
Yeah.
All right.
Alrighty. So guys, let's get back to like developing, validating, and doing your stuff. I won't keep you. If you have any questions, feel free to email me or message me in LinkedIn. I'm more than willing to give you some insights and ideas. I will share the templates. Kalev
I will
send
put them up in Slack, so you get the templates, and are you willing to share the slides also?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Cool. Thank you very much, Kristi, for sharing these insights. It was awesome, as always, to chat with you about sales and how to improve it. And I guess the best lessons are that practice, 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 and learn from your practice. It's the only way you can figure out what's the best way for your startup to sell in your industry and increase your sales.
Yeah.
All right.
Go get them.
Go get them.